What inspired you to start your own business?
It wasn't really something I was necessarily thinking about, but there was that opportunity. And I said to myself at the time that I didn't want to regret and have regrets of not doing this. And so I thought I would rather try and see where this goes than to have turned down that partnership. I thought, you know what, let's jump in and let's do this. And today I don't have any regrets of doing that.
You've led massive teams and portfolios in your career. What's your leadership philosophy when it comes to building high performance teams?
Well, I think I would start with work hard, play hard. It's used a lot, but I certainly like to have fun when we're at work. I'm very approachable to my team and always have been, but also when a job needs to be done, heads are down and people get things done. And I think that's been a key thing. You want to have people that want to work for you and not be here for the paycheck and want to be here because of how you can lead them and what you can give to them.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jared Sarbit, and this is Mastering Property Management. Today, I have the honor and privilege of having Lizaine Wheeler on, President, Owner of UnitiiPM, Inc. Lizaine, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Jared. I'm excited to be here and do this with you.
Truly my pleasure. Lizaine, tell me a little bit about who UnitiiPM is.
Yeah, so UnitiiPM is a third-party property management company. We started, we're just actually coming up on 4 years that we've been managing properties in Alberta on behalf of owners. Today, we have just over 4,500 apartment suites, units across Alberta in mostly Calgary and Edmonton and a little bit of the surrounding areas.
Great. And how long have you been around for?
So UnitiiPM has been around for 4 years. So we originally started as Unity Corp, and then 2 years ago we became UnitiiPM, where I became the sole owner of UnitiiPM.
Amazing. Lizaine, tell me a little bit about your journey. You've built an incredible career in property management, from overseeing more than 60,000 units across Canada to now leading your own company. Can you take us back to where it all began and walk us through that journey and some of the major milestones along the way?
Yeah, sure. Certainly never where I thought I would be. When I was in school, I didn't say I want to grow up and be in property management. I don't think most people do. I think most people stumble into it, and which is what I did. So about 30 years ago, I started with Boardwalk in Edmonton. My schooling background was human resources, and I was living in a Boardwalk property and I saw that they were looking for property managers. So I applied for the job with the thinking that, they're a growing company and I can get into their HR department. So I got the job as a leasing agent. So they didn't hire me as a property manager, but did hire me as a leasing agent. And so I started with them as a leasing agent at a 600 unit apartment building in Edmonton. And through that, I worked my way into that property management position. And then I think I was with Boardwalk for about a year when I was approached to and offered the human resources position in Regina. And at that point, I wasn't in a position where I wanted to move to Regina. And so I turned that down. And then about 6 months after that, I was actually offered HR position in Edmonton where I was living and everything. And I actually sort of had a moment and thought about it. And I realized I turned it down and said that I wanted to keep doing what I was doing, that I felt in property management, I was doing everything, a little bit of HR, a little bit of, with the property management, you get accounting, you just wear so many hats. And so decided to stay on that journey. So I stayed with Boardwalk for 13 years. I worked my way really from a leasing agent to vice president of the Western Canada. And so through 13 years, did that. After that, I left and went to Main Street Equities. I was there for 2 years. And so when I was with Boardwalk, I was sort of in that Western Canada, Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC. Then moving to Main Street, I got into the Ontario market. So learning a little bit more and getting, used to the Ontario market. As I mentioned, was there for 2 years. And then after that, I left and I went to Northview Apartment REIT, which was Northern Property at the time. And that got me into a whole new world of getting into the smaller towns and pretty much right across Canada. So eventually with Northview, I started, as I said, with Northern Property and into those small, into the territories. We were into, with Iqaluit and Nuvik, Yellowknife, and then across into the small towns as well. So that was where Northview was focused at the time. And then through some acquisitions and transactions, Northview grew to about 35,000 units across Canada. So I was overseeing that as their vice president. And then I made the decision to leave Northview and start this venture of managing on my own.
Wow, amazing. And what inspired you to start your own business? I mean, that's, there's one thing to operate within kind of the realm, but starting your own business, there's so many more hats you have to wear. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was, it was brought to me with a couple of other partners at the time. And so, it wasn't really something I was necessarily thinking about, but there was that opportunity. And I think at the time, even as I'm at that sort of later stage of life of looking at that retirement bubble, I said to myself at the time that I didn't want to regret and have regrets of not doing this. And so I thought I would rather try and see where this goes than to have turned down, that partnership and then look back and say, oh, I wish I would have done that. So I just didn't want to have any regrets. So I thought, you know what, let's jump in and let's do this. And today I don't have any regrets of doing that. So I'm happy that I don't.
I love that. I hope that's an inspiration to other, property managers out there that are maybe thinking about the entrepreneurship journey. So that's incredible. I love that. Good for you. It's not an easy thing to put your feet in the water and then dive right into. So
yeah, and it's not without its ups and downs for sure,
yeah.
and so there's obviously a ton of risk in doing so, and thankfully I was in a position where I was able to do that, and but it just it depends where you start and how big you can start at, but it was certainly having the connection sort of within the industry as well helped. Our very first client was Starlight, who's the largest in Canada. So, that's our very first client, and getting one building from them. It was a small little building in Edmonton, but it was a start for us, and from there, things just kind of grew, right.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that story. If you can give me just 30 seconds of your time. First off, thank you for tuning in to the Mastering Property Management podcast. We truly appreciate you spending your time with us. This show is proudly sponsored by Picture Perfect Cleaning, where we believe in creating spaces that smile. If you're enjoying the insights here, I'd love for you to dive in a little deeper. We've put together a blog called 8 Common Themes in Property Management Leadership. It's packed with lessons we've gathered from top leaders in the industry. The link is included in the show notes for this episode. And while you're there, feel free to browse our website. See how Picture Perfect Cleaning supports property managers like you every day. Thanks again for listening. And now let's get back to the show. And coming from an HR background, so what are some of the key character quality traits that have contributed to your success? You started, kind of at the ground level in property management with HR background, and then quickly, moved up as the VP of Western Canada for Boardwalk, and just kind of kept growing from there. Why are you so successful? What are those traits that got you to where you are today?
I think for sure just the hardworking. It is, and I'm a sponge for information. So, but definitely the hardworking, and I think just being willing to put up with some of the things. It's not an easy. We always say the property management's not for the faint of heart. So, you see a lot, you do a lot. It's it's a business that doesn't close, right? So, it's open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And, things, unfortunately, like the floods and things seem to happen at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And I think so if you can get through that, obviously being organized, is key, and just, the hard work, and just, if you want to, if you're in an industry and something that you love, and sometimes people laugh at me when I say that I love property management, but I do. And so if you're in and doing something that you love, like I love the fact that every day is different. And so I think for me, HR is great and everything, but I just like the fact that I'm, not behind a desk all the time. Every day is different. Yesterday was a good example. I had my day plan. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then, 4 o'clock comes, I was on a call with somebody. He said, "How's your day going?" And I said, "I haven't done anything off my to-do list yet today, but I haven't stopped all day." And those are days that, and I think that's fine. Right. But then you just got to make sure you can figure out how to do everything. So,
Yes,
mm,
yes, it really is. This comes up a lot in our podcast, but it's a business of a million details,
yeah.
and there's so many things you have to take care of. So it's a
And
real,
that was a key reason, sorry, as to why, I didn't want to focus and go down just that HR path, because I felt like I said, you're wearing so many hats. You are doing some marketing, you're accounting, you are doing HR. So you are doing that. So I've certainly been able to leverage my HR experience and, with staff and dealing with staff and, and how I manage and that. But yeah, this to me was, I get to wear all the hats and I like that.
yeah, amazing. Yeah, can you go into that if you don't mind a little bit on the human resource side? What are those skills sets that you have kind of brought into the business that you think have always benefited you along the way?
Yeah, I think from an HR, like, when you have the HR background, you sort of also, learn a little bit with how to deal with people. I mean, you certainly don't learn how to, learn everything, but, you learn and know sort of, how what you can do and what's right and what's wrong in the world. And, we learn obviously, through HR interviewing, discipline and all those kind of things. So certainly been able to bring that and take that, over the years, where I've been with companies that, with both Main Street and Northview at the time didn't have HR departments. And even with us, we don't really have an HR department. So I'm able to do that. But I think also is just from a management is, knowing, understanding what people want and what people's needs are and just trying to, we want to be the best that we can be as managers. And, I know that we're not always going to be liked by everybody, but, if we treat people the way we want to be treated and the way people should be treated, then I think we'll have success. And so a lot of that comes from that HR background.
Love it. That's awesome. Yeah. So kind of continued on that note, you've had so much experience across Canada. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've taken from those experiences from, Main Street or Boardwalk or I think it's Northview, that you apply now to Unity PM today?
I think, for a start, I mean, that was one of probably the most appealing thing to me about starting this company was, for me, I got a blank canvas. But with that blank canvas, I was able to take, the good, things that I've learned along the way from, obviously some very successful and great companies that were great to work for and take a lot of, the learnings or, things that even I might have implemented with those companies and bring all the good stuff here. But then also, to look at things and say, what would I have done differently, in sort of different situations and try to bring some of that in as well. So you've got the good, the good stuff on the canvas, but you've also got the bad stuff on the canvas and things you looked at and said, how can we do something differently? And some stuff you can't do differently. Some stuff it is what it is. But what can we do differently and make this, a bit different of a company?
Love it. That's awesome. UnitiiPM has a bold mission, reimagining Alberta property ownership and enhancing residents' experiences. What does that mean in practice?
I think, for us, we don't see ourselves as just property management. We look at it, we treat every property the same, every owner the same. It doesn't matter what, size of their property. Our smallest property is 6 units and our largest is 598. But every single one of those owners gets treated the same way. It doesn't matter. And I think we take pride. And so we look at each building as if it was our own. We make sure that we're out there, what's in the best interest of our owners. When we're negotiating pricing and things like that is, what would I look at and what would I want if that building was mine? Even now we're in the thick of budget season. It is that right now. And so, today doing budgets, I look at the budgets. I'm sort of that final reviewer before it goes to the owner. I'm looking at it from the owner's point of view. So I'm looking at saying, okay, if I own own this building, what would I want to see, and what are the numbers here, and what would I question, and going back. So I think that's just a key thing of what we do, and we want to work alongside our owners and alongside the tenants and our residents, and just make sure that we're meeting everybody's needs, and we're listening to everybody, and we're reacting accordingly.
Yes, I love it. Wonderful. Alberta's rental landscape is changing quickly, from purpose-built rentals to new tenant expectations. How is Unity positioning itself to stay ahead of these shifts?
It's a good question. I think we're trying not to react to it. We're trying to anticipate it. So we're trying to look ahead as to what's coming and what's the needs are. So a big thing for us is we try to work. We try to work with owners, especially on the new projects. We push and try to say, get us involved early, and get us involved at the development stage and your planning stage, because what we look at is we look at things operationally. We've done it. Our team, my team, myself, my team, we've been around, we've seen these things. So we can look at things and say, from the simple things, and sort of the best example I use is paint, is what type of paint to use on the walls. If you're going to keep the building and want to manage it, then I would tell you to use this paint. And if you want to sell the building and you're building it to sell, then I would tell you to use a different paint, right? And cost wise and stuff, because we look at the longevity. We look at what we, work with the owners. What is your goals? What do you want to do? What is it that you want to get with this property? So, what can we do? What is the market looking for? Amenities are obviously a much bigger thing than what they were, in the buildings that were built in the 70s and 80s, that, you don't see the gyms as much, and, social rooms, the golf simulators, the rooftop patios, the saunas, all those kind of things. You don't see those. But that's what the expectation is, and what people are looking for if they're getting into that new product, right? But what, different area, what, where is the building located, what is needed. So yeah, it's important for us to partner with all of our owners, and like I said, if we can get in on those early stages with them and help them, we can probably save money. We're not out here to say, you got to put the most elaborate gym in, or that kind of things. It's just like, here's what do you have? What's your budget? And let's see what we can work with to make this apartment appealing.
Excellent. Great answer. Thank you. You've led massive teams and portfolios in your career. What's your leadership philosophy when it comes to building high performance teams?
Well, I think I would start with work hard, play hard, and I know it sounds it's used a lot, but I certainly like to have fun when we're at work, and I'm very approachable to my team, and always have been, and easily to joke around with, and and very like I said, make myself very approachable, but also when a job needs to be done, heads are down, and people get things done, and I think that's been a key thing, and people, you want to have people that want to work for you, and not want to, not be here for the paycheck, and want to be here because of what how you can lead them, and what you can give to them. So work hard, play hard, take it and have fun at work and enjoy what you do. But like I said, deadlines, month end, budgets, whatever, heads are down, and things need to be done. And then the other thing for me, which is a huge one, is to lead by example. And one thing I will never ask people to do is, I never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do. And so I have been down on my hands and knees cleaning suites, cleaning hallways, shoveling snow, whatever it is. I recently joked I hired a new controller, and it's one of my questions that I ask when I'm interviewing people, and making sure that they're willing to, step in wherever necessary, especially with a small company like this. And, I said one day we could be, in an assembly line stuffing envelopes, or you could, being your controller job. And sure enough, we were doing the security deposit return checks in September, which is a massive month. And him and I were sitting there stuffing envelopes. And I kind of said to him, I said, see, I told you that you could be stuffing envelopes one day. But there we were, side by side, stuffing envelopes. And so, it's a big thing is just, like I said, this industry is not for the faint of heart. So, what you're asking people to do, you're in people's homes, you have people's lives, that we're just part of, because that's where people live. So it's respecting that. But there's a lot of things that come with that. So, just to not ask people to, do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Words of wisdom. Thank you very much. Having managed properties across provinces, how would you describe the current state of Alberta's multifamily market right now?
Yeah, I think, Alberta's, I don't know if I'd call it the wild child, or it's a roller coaster. And I tell everybody that, I get calls from owners in Toronto, and we're looking at Alberta, and you have to be prepared to ride that roller coaster in Alberta. And there's ups, there's downs, and you just have to be prepared to ride that roller coaster. And if you're not, then you probably shouldn't come in here, and you probably shouldn't buy properties here. But today, I see this market in a bit of a correction market, rather than sort of, in that recession times that we saw. So I see it as a little bit of a correction. So about 3 years ago, and sort of post COVID, we were a perfect storm in Alberta. So it was an absolute perfect storm. We had a whole bunch of net migration from Toronto, Vancouver, because cost of living was cheaper in Calgary, and more as secondary as Edmonton. So we had that migration. We had a whole bunch of pent up immigration through COVID. So that starts to come into our country. And then we had the Ukrainian refugees. So we had a huge influx in Alberta of Ukrainian refugees. So it was just sort of this perfect storm of everything post COVID. Like I said, a lot of migration, and then the Ukrainian refugees that came in, and then we had 8 years pretty much of no rent increases, of nothing but rent decreases. So being in a market where there isn't rent increase, rent control, there was the demand, and so based on the demand, those rents were going up, and people were lining up for the units that we had, and it didn't matter the condition of the units. There was just a lineup for it, and so it was, like I said, it was a perfect storm, and so we were able to increase the rents and try to catch up from some of that 8 years of not having rent increases. And I think now it's just kind of stabilized. We don't have that migration. We don't have the Ukrainian refugees. We don't have the net migration either. And we have a lot of new product, right? So I think it's just a little bit more of a correction into the market as to probably where rents should be, after having that big at the top of the roller coaster. We're certainly not at the bottom of the roller coaster, but it's just a correcting of what is the rents and what are people willing to pay.
Yes, interesting. Very insightful. Thank you for that. The industry is experiencing a generational shift, not just in tenants, but in staff as well. What do you think it will take to attract and retain great talent in property management going forward?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because I think we're as an industry, where we're shifting to is technology. And again, to go back to COVID, I think COVID forced us to embrace technology. So going from hand signed leases to digital leases, we probably should have always been there, but COVID sort of forced that, and to force online applications, and being as digital and as possible. And I think we have to cater to what customers want, and so for the majority of customers, I don't think they want to speak to people on the phone. I don't think they want to call up and say that my tap is dripping and somebody needs to come and look at it. They want to be able to do it from their phones. And so as much as whether we agree with it or not, we have to embrace that technology. So we have to find ways that we can embrace that. AI has come into our world, and it's certainly, front and center with property management. And so, I think that's a key thing, is as a an owner of whatever company, but certainly an owner in this industry. I think you have to embrace technology and embrace what do your customers want and what do your owners want. And I think that employees want that as well, right? So, again, employees not having to sit down, sign leases, and as much as we can make their job digital for them, I think that's what they want as well. And what it's allowed us is, if I go back to my early days, we had to have like a building manager, resident manager in an office, in every building, sitting in an office. And we don't have to do that today, because of technology has allowed that, and because tenants also don't want that as much either, right? don't want to, even prospects, they really don't want to see people. So it's sometimes doing, sort of showings where people can just go into the units on their own. Because again, COVID, we couldn't show units, but we could leave, door open and say, go ahead and look at that unit and take your time in there and look at it. And so, we can do those things now. And I think, like I said, I think just the key is, no matter who you are in the industry, you just have to embrace it. And I think, listening to your team and your staff, like, I think every day we're looking at different ways that we can improve technology to make their jobs easier, to make the tenants' lives easier, and to make the owners' lives easier.
Beautiful. It really is amazing how much the landscape has changed since COVID, and how the expectation from a staffing perspective has changed, and the lifestyle and how we service our clients. It's amazing.
It really has, yeah. Yeah. It had a big impact, obviously, on our lives in many ways. But when you look at the different things, just these podcasts, Teams calls, we always had Teams. We always had Teams available to us prior to COVID, but we never, Teams and Zoom and all those kind of things, but we never really used it. And for me, especially when I was managing right across the country, how great was Teams to be able to use during COVID? And I kind of looked at them like, geez, why didn't I use this beforehand? Because I can have face-to-face conversations with my managers, and I felt like I knew them, even if I'd never met them. Like, we'd hired managers, never met them, but we got on these Teams or Zoom calls, and you do feel like you've actually met them in person because you're seeing their face.
Yes. Yeah. Powerful stuff. As a leader in property management, what advice would you give to aspiring property managers looking to climb the ranks and achieve similar success to you?
Yeah, it's a good one because, like I said, it's certainly not for the faint of heart. And so I think, and I also think that, like I said, I don't think people say when I grow up I want to be a property manager. I went to one of my nephew's grads, and it was a small town school, and everybody comes up, and I'm going to be a vet, I'm going to be a power engineer, and this and this. I'm like, nobody's saying property management, and I think it's a great industry, and so I think it's a one. You certainly have to work your way through things. It's there's the good and the bad and the ugly, and so I think certainly sticking with it. It is it is, like I said, it's a good industry. I think embrace it for what it is. Like I said, it's take it and look at it and say, I get to do so many things, and so I do get to wear all those hats. And there's not a lot of jobs where you can do that, and you're not sitting behind a desk all day long. So embrace it and look at what all the the positives and how much of an impact you can make on somebody's lives. Tenants, first apartment, last apartment, going from, empty nesters, going from a house to an apartment. Like, it's such a big step in people's lives, and you get to be part of that, and you can make that experience a good or bad experience. So I think, like, just really embrace it. And like I said, I wouldn't be here without working hard, and work hard. And I think, as leaders, recognize those people that work hard, and those people that do have the initiative to be in this industry and to go far, and never think of you're promoting somebody, or somebody's here to take your job. Just think of how can I work with that and get that next group of property managers in, so that maybe one day these high school students are standing up and saying, I want to be a property manager one day.
Awesome, awesome, and you can really see that your passion and your love for property management just really shines through. That it speaks volumes, and I'm sure that comes to right into your business as well. So that's beautiful. Assuming janitorial is one of your largest ongoing costs, how do you look for janitorial companies to work with, and what qualities in the company are you looking for?
Yeah, so another great question. So I think for us, anybody that we work with, and like I said, whether it's owners or contractors, it's always a partnership for us. So that's first and foremost, so that they align with our values and our goals, and all of that, and our owners' values and goals as well. So for us, it's a partnership. And we want to be able to work with contractors that we can service more of our properties as well. So, are not limited to saying, necessarily can only do this one property, because, we want to leverage pricing. I'd be a liar if I didn't say that. So we want to leverage pricing. So, we think that we can, by having, the amount of units that we do, we can go and say, okay, for a cleaning company, you could quote on these 5 buildings. and I'm going to get a better quote on those 5 buildings versus me asking you to quote on one building. So we say that to owners all the time with any of the, the contracts that we do. You're going to call somebody in and say, quote on this one building. And then I'm going to get a different quote because I'm lumping 5, 6, 10 buildings together for them and getting better, better quotes on everything. So janitorial, maintenance, any of that kind of thing is, it's important. And like I said, we work closely with our contractors. Again, it's that partnership, but there's times, like I said, floods happen at 2:00 in the morning, in -40, that's when things happen. So we need contractors that we can rely on, with our janitorial contractors to come out to do cleanups and, flood cleanups and things like that. So we need contractors that we can rely on, that are there for us, in those emergency situations, because in this industry, they happen, and they happen more than what we would like them to happen. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Great answer. Thank you so much. If you could manage any famous property in the world, what property would that be and why?
I had to think about this one. So if I was talking like residential and the property management, then I would probably I would probably go with the Disney World, to be at Disney World, the Disneyland resorts, and the residents that are there. I think I'm a kid at heart, so to be in Disneyland all the time when working in Disneyland, I think and then they have such a great philosophy of of customer service and guest services and things like that. So I think that would be cool if I wasn't picking a residential and I could manage a building. I would probably, because I'm a massive Edmonton Oilers fan, I would say Rogers Arena, that I would love to be managing and overseeing the whole arena, and maybe getting a little closer to those Oiler boys. So
Awesome. Must be hard being an Oilers fan here in Calgary.
well, when we're good and Flames are not so good, it's a little easier. But
That's true.
I'm pretty loud and proud. So
Nice.
like I said, I grew up just outside of
Yes.
Edmonton, so I've been an
Yeah.
Oilers fan. So I just say, when I moved to Calgary, like, you can take the girl out of the city, but you can't take the team out of the girl. So
Awesome. Love it. Love it. That's awesome. Very nice. Beautiful building. I can't wait to see Calgary's new stadium too. That's it's
yeah,
nice to see the
yeah,
two
absolutely.
cities
Hmm.
develop. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Um,
And for those of us that live in Calgary, to get some decent concerts again, it'll be
yes,
nice, right? So we don't have
absolutely.
to
Yeah,
drive down the road to go to
exactly.
concerts. So
Exactly.
that'll be
Yeah.
exciting as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. If you could recommend any book to your fellow property managers, what book would that be and why?
So again, I'll stick with my Disney theme, and one book that I've read, and when I'm talking, customer service, and customer service can be the same for any industry. So I don't read a lot, but sometimes people recommend good books to me, and so one that was recommended to me was the Be Our Guest, and it's Perfecting the Art of Customer Service, and it's by the Disney Institute. And it focuses on their customer service philosophy, and exceeding expectations rather than satisfying expectations. And it can teach you a lot on customer service, no matter what industry you're in.
I will definitely check that out. I don't think I've heard of it actually. So that's I didn't know that existed. But
There you
wow,
go.
yeah, we all know that Disney's service is as good as it comes. So if they
That's
wrote a
right.
book about it, that is definitely one that I'll read, and maybe even get our whole team to read. So thank you for that
There you
one.
go. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
really
no
good.
problem.
Amazing. Well, Lizaine, thank you so much for joining me. You have an amazing story. I love the entrepreneurial side, and you have so much experience. So lots. Everyone can learn from your wisdom. So thank you so much, and I wish you and UnitiiPM much continued success. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jared. Thanks for reaching out and inviting me to do this with you. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, thanks a lot.
You bet. Thank you.